if you could explain what is the crack?
Hey, the crack.
How can I have the crack? What's the crack?
What is the crack? You are the crack.
Welcome to episode 11 of Audio Crack, where we discuss the weird, the paranormal, all sorts of stuff. Today, we have on Scott Roeder, owner of the Evidence Room, crime and shooting scene reconstruction expert. We're going to talk a little bit about a couple of videos, but mainly the Vegas backyard alien videos that have been coming out. You may have known the story. Very interesting story. I blogged about it several times. Earlier in the night, police officers have body cam footage of something falling out of the sky. Almost looks like a comet, but something very weirdly covered falling out of the sky. They get a call about it. And then later, they get a call from two kids saying that, hey, there's aliens in our backyard. And the case hasn't really found any sort of conclusion. No one really knows what happened. The cops were freaked out. The kids were freaked out. The kids submitted a video on YouTube later being like, look, I don't know what happened. And they're kind of telling me to say, you know, this and that. Very weird situation. But first, while we welcome on Scott. Scott's also worked on seriously pivotal, high-profile cases such as the trial of Derek Chauvin and the case surrounding Oscar Pistorius. He has a multidisciplinary approach that encompasses forensic science, ballistics, bloodstain pattern analysis, and more, equipping him with tools to decipher the intricacies of crime scenes. Very intense expert in the field, has some pretty interesting takes on a lot of situations that the common eye cannot see. And Scott, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Billy. I appreciate it. It's a real pleasure to be here, man.
So Scott, what got you into your field of expertise? Like, was there any pivotal moment that said, hey, I want to just look at crime scenes, look at some of the more disturbing sides of humanity?
Well, I mean, I started off, working for a company that did animations for trial support. And I got involved with the Cleveland Police Department defending a few police officers of a shooting case. It's actually got a sports hinge into it. The former Cleveland Indians pitcher, Lenny Barker, the guy who pitched a perfect game for the Cleveland Indians back in 1980, has a daughter. I guess I can talk about this. Is a case a long time ago, and was married to this guy, and he opened up a company called Perfect Pitch Construction Company, and the guy was in a bad neighborhood in Cleveland, and he flashed a pistol to a guy walking down the street. And so the guy walking down the street calls 911 and said, hey, this guy just flashed a pistol at me for no reason. So the police come in, one in an undercover car and the other in a uniform car, a black and white, and they kind of box in his truck. And this guy freaks out. He backs up into the one car, tries to create room, crashes into the other car, and the officer gets out and holds a gun on him. He runs over the officer's foot, and as the car's driving away, he shoots. The officer shoots at the car. So he was charged with felonious assault on a police officer. I did a reconstruction of that event, and it was really kind of a revolutionary thing in the field where I got the actual cops together. We put together photography, and we were able to, I worked with the police department and the prosecutor's office, and we were able to get a conviction for felonious assault and defend the police from a case of, violation of their civil rights. And it was, and that case there really demonstrated to me that I had a knack for doing reconstruction. And that was very early on in my career. This goes back to 1995, I think, something like that. So now, 2002, I started my company, Evidence Room, because I felt like there was a need for a more scientific approach to demonstrative evidence in the courtroom. And I developed a process of putting science, art, and law together to be able to give the jury a tactile experience so that they could understand events that really everyday people don't get involved in. Most people don't shoot guns. Most people have never been shot by a gun. Most people have never had a car try to run them off the road. So to be able to put together these tactile presentations and do experiments and show your math and show how you put it together, to me, I felt like it was a something that the industry needed, and that's really how I got involved in the business.
So when it comes to scenes we see, videos, when you look at them to try to determine how real they are, what's the first things you look at?
Well, we put it into our software to determine if there is any kind of an artificial manipulation to the video. And it's very simple process. When you open up any kind of a video, you have two data lines. You have a video line and you have an audio line. You can separate the audio from the video, and you can look at the video to see if there's anything artificial in it. You can look at the audio to see if there's anything artificial put into it. And if you only have those two files in the line, then you know that the video is not corrupted. So that it's a basic process to determine if we're looking at an unedited video or a video that's been manipulated in some way.
Wow. So when it comes to some like older footage, like for example, the JFK assassination tape, the Zapruder film.
Yeah.
Do you have, when you were watching that video, when you were seeing the ballistics around it, like, do you think the stories it is what it is?
Absolutely, 100%. John F. Kennedy was killed by multiple gunmen, and the fatal shot came from the front. That is agreed upon in all aspects of the forensic science community. There is not one reputable forensic scientist, not one reputable ballistics expert, shooting scene reconstruction expert that believes that was a lone gunman. The idea that that is still being perpetrated, as I call it, the lone gunman conspiracy theory, because it is impossible for anybody to have gotten off those shots in that amount of time with that gun. And then on top of all of that, the biomechanics of John F. Kennedy, and this is going to sound cliche because we all heard it on the Jerry Seinfeld show and all that stuff, back and to the left, back and to the left. And that is extremely important because when we all know, and I don't know if we all know this, but it's a very simple process. The entrance hole of a bullet when it enters the body is always going to be smaller than the exit hole. Now, the exit hole on the back of John F. Kennedy's head was so dramatic that it blew the entire back of his head off. And that, when you look at the film, Jacqueline Kennedy actually goes to retrieve the piece of John F. Kennedy's skull that fell onto the back of the limousine. So the idea that that could have happened from a rear shot is inexplicable. But this happened at a time before people in the general public knew about science, right? It happened in 1963. You had 3 channels, you had 5 radio stations, and you could go to the picture show, right? You didn't have the internet. You had to go to the library. And forensics and ballistics and that kind of thing wasn't something that people generally were interested in. And at that time, people believed what the government told them. So when the government told you in 1963 that the guy at the book building shot him, from the back, you believed it. And you really didn't have any question. You didn't really have any reason to question it. However, in today's world, where there has been, I think, a rightful suspension of belief in the powers that be, and I don't want to get political because it's not about politics. I'm a very apolitical person. I think both parties are fucked up and full of shit and lie to us constantly. So it's not about a party, right? It's about just the truth, right? And I think people are a lot smarter today than they were in 1963, just because we have access to really all of the world's information for free at our fingertips. And it just takes a curious mind to figure it out.
Now, when it comes to other famous tapes that people think are fake, for example, the moon landing, like, what's your take on like? Do you,
Oh, brother.
do-
Oh, man. I don't want to get myself in trouble here.
yeah,
Okay, the phone call from the moon to President Nixon's office was obviously fake. That was staged because even to this day, you cannot make a phone call to the moon. You just can't do it.
yeah.
We have not been back to the moon since 1972. Why? I don't know. The the footage of the guys up on the moon doing their thing is bizarre. Uh, if you look at it through today's lens, it's bizarre. The ship, the capsule, the Apollo lander, apparently was made with a shell that was so thin it was compared to a piece of tinfoil. And the astronauts said that if you put your foot up against it, you would poke a hole in it. I don't know how that happened like that. So, I can't say that the moon landing is fake because I would be canceled.
Yeah.
But I have my suspicions that things are not always as they are put to us. That's what I'll say about that.
I mean, I could see the footage absolutely being fake. I definitely think the US got to the moon, maybe not in the time they said, and maybe they just circumnavigated the moon and didn't actually land or something like that. But there is evidence that if you point certain lasers at the moon, that there's reflectors that point back that we were there. That's only from a Mythbuster episode, but I almost think that the astronauts on the flight, if you think about it, it wouldn't be that hard to make the astronauts also think they were actually on the moon. Like if you put some guys in, a spaceship ride of sorts, they only can look out the one window. You could even play like by the time they wake up and can move around, you can just put a TV screen there.
Right.
Like by the
Yeah.
time then you're like, oh, you're on the moon. You just throw them around a little in some simulator, and then they walk out onto this movie set, and they're like, don't go more than 100 yards from the 100 yards
Right.
from the. And then there's the pictures of the background of the moon
Yeah.
landing lining up to like places in Arizona or
Actually, I think it's in I think I think Arizona is one of them, but then also in in Greenland.
oh,
Yeah.
they could have just sent them to they could have just sent them into orbit and then dropped them off in Greenland just to
I mean, it's
prevent.
possible. I mean, listen, I wouldn't put anything past our government to manipulate the people of the United States. And it's not, like I said, it's not a political party. It's, I think, like I said, people have every right to be critical of what the government tells you because if we think that they're doing things for our benefit, I think that's pretty naive at this point in time.
In some of the cases that you testified in or against, what were some like I know we've been getting very out there. Let's bring it back in. What sort of crime scene investigations did you play a pivotal role in? Like, for example, the Oscar Pistorius case.
Well, I mean, there's so many. I've worked on, I think the last count is 1,688 cases in my career. So I have quite a bit to come through. And you're right, we should bring it back down on earth here a little bit and back into my area of expertise. How about I just go in reverse order? The last case I testified on was just last week on May 21st, I think it was. I testified on a case in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was the case of the city of St. Louis versus Christopher Dunn. Now, Christopher Dunn is a guy who was convicted of murder in 1990. There was absolutely no evidence whatsoever linking him to the crime. I did a reconstruction of the murder of this kid, Rico Rogers, on his front porch, and I demonstrated clearly for the judge that this is the way the murder happened. And that I think is critical. And we're waiting on the judge's verdict right now. And hopefully, based on my testimony, Mr. Dunn is going to be coming home soon. And he spent a lifetime in prison, 33 years. I had a very similar case in 2019. I testified in Cleveland at the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas in a case called City of Cleveland versus John Tajan. Now, John Tajan was convicted of murdering his best friend, Brian McGarry, in 1989. I demonstrated for the court that it was most likely, to a degree of scientific certainty, a suicide, and John Tajan is now a free man as a result of my testimony. And the judge on that case, here's another sports link into it, was former Cleveland Browns linebacker Dick Ambrose. Was the judge on that case. And what a terrific judge. He just recently retired, but he wrote an opinion. It's out there. Anybody can look it up. Just look up John Tajan, City of Cleveland, Judge Dick Ambrose ruling. And any of you Cleveland Browns fan out there will know how cool it was to have the judge be a former Cleveland Browns Ring of Honor, football player. So as a longtime Clevelander and Cleveland Browns fan, Cleveland Indians / Guardians fan, that was a pretty cool experience for me. But I testify in all kinds of police involved shooting cases, both defending the police and working for people like the late Johnny Cochran. And I'll give you a little example. And here's another little sports story to go into it. So I was living in Los Angeles, California, and I worked for Johnny Cochran's law firm for an attorney by the name of Brian Dunn. And I testified on a case in Long Beach, California, where this homeless woman was shot by the police, 22 times or something like that, by 2 cops. And she was like 5'1", homeless woman. She had a steak knife in her hand. She was mentally insane. They did not need to shoot her. They could have wrestled that knife away, and she could be alive today. Anyway, we did the reconstruction. The family won something like $23 million, and I was a hero of the community at that time. The very next day, I got on an airplane. I fly to Cincinnati, Ohio. And on the plane, sitting next to me, was none other than my personal hero. I played baseball. I just retired playing competitive amateur baseball 2 years ago because I got beamed in the foot by a young kid who was throwing 85 and broke a couple of bones. And I'm healed now, and I might be making a comeback. But sitting next to me was Pete Rose.
Wow.
And me and Pete Rose had a great time, 5-hour flight. He is the coolest guy in the world. And anyway, so I've dropped off in Cincinnati, and I testified defending a police officer in a case where he's being charged criminally for shooting and killing a driver by the name of Sam Dubois. And we got a not guilty verdict on that case because, clearly he was in fear for his life. So I'm not an ideologue. I don't only defend the police. I don't only work for people like Johnny Cochran's law firm. I have one allegiance, and that's simply to do my job to the best of the ability, to the highest degree of truth that I can prove it in a courtroom. And that's my only allegiance. I have no dog in the fight. I carry no banner. I have no oath except to the truth.
So using your expertise, the golf community has come under huge fire for their star, Scottie Scheffler. The second day of the PGA Championship, he got arrested, and the officers claiming that he didn't cooperate with their traffic demands and ended up dragging the officer 10 yards while he's banging on their window, and Scottie wasn't listening, and basically they ended up arresting him before the second day of the PGA Tour. This is almost as bad as the other guys when Derek Jeter got shot before the World Series. So using your expertise as a crime scene reconstruction expert, a ballistics expert, I sent you the video. If you could just tell us what you think from your well-trained eye. Did Scottie Scheffler drag this police officer?
I mean, from first look at it, it does. First of all, the car does not move 10 yards, right? The car maybe moves 10 feet, but the car definitely does not move 10 yards. I think that if we take this video and do a reconstruction, we could tell exactly how many feet that the car moves from just general relative scale from doing the modeling and some known values that we can find out. We have tour buses there. We can see how long those are. We can get information on Google Earth of the distance between those fence posts that are off to the right, and then we can determine the what kind of car Scottie's driving, and then with that information, we'll be able to tell you a couple things. One, how many feet his car moved, and two, once I get a look at the indictment, I have to see if they're talking about the police officer that's on the passenger side or on the driver's side, because it looks like there's two police officers there. I don't see anybody getting dragged anywhere. I see that the police officer or somebody on the passenger side looks like he makes purposeful contact with the car, but I don't see anybody being dragged. So yeah, I think that I could do a reconstruction to a degree of scientific certainty, and then I could just donate it to Scottie's defense fund. I could break it for you here on your show, Billy,
Perfect.
and we'll just put it out into the universe. And I think that listen, we can, I think, identify what actually happened to Scottie Scheffler and answer the question for the golf community. Is this a renegade cop who got caught doing something wrong? Or is Scottie Scheffler guilty of this assault, essentially, is what he's being charged with on a police officer? And we can get a final answer on that. And I'll be happy to do that reconstruction. I will donate my services, and I'll give it to you, Billy. I just need a few days to get it done.
Amazing. That'll be huge. I mean, we'll be able to free Scottie, and he'll be able to play golf to the high level degree that he can.
Scottie, absolutely.
Free Scottie. If we can put this together using your expertise, we could definitely get Scottie off. And if this clip goes viral enough, this will be amazing.
No, absolutely. Listen, here's the problem with police. I know a lot of great police officers, and they literally risk their lives in certain situations. However, ego gets in the way. And when a police officer makes a mistake, the cardinal sin I see police officers do is they don't just say, I fucked up, right? I made a mistake. And then they have to double down on their mistake and create something to exonerate themselves, when really the easiest thing to do is just say, hey, I fucked up. I messed up. I arrested him. I roughed him up. And it's usually because of ego, right? So, the only advice I have to police officers, and they will definitely not take my advice, but the only advice I have for police officers is, if you make a mistake, just admit to it, because we're all human. We all make mistakes, and nobody's holding you to the standard of zero mistakes, okay? You're allowed to make a mistake, but what you're not allowed to do is lie about it, cover it up, and then point the finger at somebody else when really you should just say sorry.
And I mean, look, you've probably dealt with so much video evidence moving forward that you've seen so many instances of probably police in both their worst and best moments.
Yeah.
It's a job that, you get put in situations that multiple times that no one's ever been in, and not no one, but like, it's hard to think rationally. So, another video that we've spoken about on this podcast, and we had an expert, Ashton Forbes, on about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I'd love to get you both on one time to talk about it. But the flight MH370 Malaysian Air flight that disappeared, there was several angles of the same, definitely depicting the same thing. It wasn't like it was several angles of different shots. It was the exact same plane moving at the same angles, same speeds, with three objects surrounding it, and then what looks like disappearing it. So, I mean, I've sent you the videos. What's your take?
Yeah, I looked at that this morning for about an hour, and I heard Ashton on one of my favorite podcasts, the Higher Side Chats, which was I think it was a 3-hour deep dive. And the guy's extremely credible. He knows his stuff on this subject matter better than I've seen anybody know their subject about anything. I looked at those videos. Those videos seem to be authentic. I need to rip them open and verify what Ashton has done. However, my inclination is that it's real. And my inclination is that there are a couple of options. One, this could be extraterrestrials somehow messing with this airplane. I think that's a long shot. What I think is a higher probability is that there is a terrestrial answer and that there's some sort of secret technology that can portal jump an airplane. Now, it's the answer. Then the next question is, well, why would they do that? Is it a terrorist event? I don't know of any terrorists that have that kind of technology. This isn't, a Mission Impossible movie, but what most likely is it's a government state agency that has some secret technology. And listen, we're going to get into the UFO phenomenon here, I think, in a moment, right, with the Vegas case. But to me, the disclosure movement for UAPs or UFOs or aliens or ETs or whatever you want to call them merges and converges with the conspiracy world of what some people call, I guess, the truth community. We talked about the John F. Kennedy assassination earlier and the conspiracy theory of the lone gunman. So, it's the same government that's perpetrating that lie, that it was a lone gunman. And it's the same government that perpetrates the lie that Robert Kennedy was killed by Sirhan Sirhan, when clearly Sirhan Sirhan was under some sort of MK Ultra control. The government also, has admitted to, through whistleblowers like David Grush, to reverse engineering extraterrestrial craft from as early as 1948, maybe earlier, with the Roswell crash. So the evidence is clear, I think, that governments, particularly the American government, has access to secret technology that is probably from reverse engineering ET craft. Now, whether those ET crafts are being shot down, whether the ETs are gifting us that technology, or whether they're coming down by accident, the evidence is almost undeniable at this point that I think the evidence is undeniable at this point that we are being visited by some sort of non-human intelligence. I think that this Vegas video proves it. I think that the Malaysian flight video proves that there is some sort of technology, secret technology, that probably could only be from reverse engineering ET crafts. These were metal. They look like metal spheres. They don't look like orbs to me. And I've gotten videos of orbs. And orbs are kind of like plasma. They don't seem to have they don't seem to be solid. These objects in the Malaysian video, the video that you showed me from Ashton, they look like solid metal balls. Mm-hmm. And if somehow those are being controlled, remote control, I think that's within the realm of possibility. The idea that this plane would just disappear off the map and people wouldn't even find a black box is inexplicable. You can find an airplane when it lands in the middle of the ocean. The black boxes don't stop beeping. So I think the compelling thing is that they haven't found anything, and the black box hasn't been found, that it just flew off the map. But then we have this video footage, and you have to look at what evidence do we have to come to an opinion. And this is legit evidence. And back in 2014, I agree with Ashton that the level of special effects to be able to manipulate that video and the time frame that it was released, uh, I don't think that's possible. I don't think that you can. I don't think that you could do that back at that time. So I'm inclined to believe what Ashton has done is true, that it's authentic, and certainly there's some kind of a cover up going on. I don't know why or by who, but I think like all big events, there's there's not a lot of accidents in the world. You know, a lot of people say don't, like there's this one saying, uh, don't mark up to conspiracy that can be proven or demonstrated through incompetence.
Occam's
I
razor.
don't think,
Yeah.
yeah, Occam's razor. But Occam's razor is the evidence tells you what to look at. And let's get to the Vegas alien video for a second.
Mm.
The evidence is overwhelming. This could be the biggest story of all time, Billy, bigger than Roswell, because we have video footage that 100% corroborates the witness statements of the Kenmore family. 100% corroborates it. We have evidence, foolproof evidence. It cannot be debunked. I actually put a call to action out. If anybody can debunk it, I'm willing to go on a show with you and prove to me how you can debunk it. I've knocked down every debunker that came at me so far. Every one. Every single one. And here's the big things that they want to debunk it on. It's a shadow. It's not a shadow, Billy. Really simple way to explain why it's not a shadow. You have a light source, you have an object, you have a shadow. Okay? You need a surface for a shadow to exist. Shadows don't float in the air. They just don't. They just don't. So this head that we see is directly above the fence. And then there's another object in the background that moves from right to left. And that's what scares these people, is that object in the background. And then immediately they give a statement to 911. There are two large beings in our backyard. They're definitely not human, 8 to 10 feet tall. We did scaling. That is a 6-foot fence. That head is 2 feet above the fence. Okay? That's an 8 to 10 foot tall being. Okay, right there. We've used AI fueled vector tracking software to verify that the image behind the fence perfectly lines up with the movement of the head above the fence. So it's real. It's there. It's in the same physical reality as the Kenmore family. This is proof that we are being visited in this planet today by non-human intelligence. It's proof. It's undeniable, Billy. The aliens or the ETs or the demons or the interdimensional beings or whatever they are, they're here and they're doing stuff.
One thing that really struck out to me was that the family was seemingly, first generation immigrants. They don't really put up with, as someone who grew up with a family of first generation immigrants on my father's side, like they didn't really put up with, there's aliens in the backyard, but they were cooperating with the police.
Right.
The kids followed up and they're like, look, they created a YouTube video that was pretty convincing where they're like, we had no idea about this. If it was an elaborate hoax, how the hell did they have the thing flying out of the sky from the body cam footage from 2 miles away from the police body cam footage? And then, they got a call about something falling out of the sky, and then they get a call about aliens in the backyard. I mean, what would motivate them to start a hoax like that? It just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all. First generation immigrant people, they don't want to talk to the police, period, forever, for good reason, right? They don't want to talk to the media for good reason, because what happens when you talk to the mainstream media? They make fun of you. They'll put up X-Files music over you talking, and they'll make a joke out of it. They don't take it seriously. But I think my inclination and why I wanted to work on this video was I was disgusted that people out there in the world were calling this a hoax. And, you have to defend the little guy, right? The one rule in all of public broadcasting is you own, and should be in the news, should be everything. You only punch up, right? You only punch up. You never punch down. If you punch down, you're a piece of shit. Okay? You don't punch down. You have to punch up. You can punch at power. You can punch at the government. You can punch at the cops. You can punch at the big bad wolf, but you don't punch down at regular people. And these are regular people who made a genuine claim and called 911. Now, I'll tell you a couple things. The Las Vegas police don't think this is a joke. Homeland Security doesn't think this is a joke. I don't think it's a joke. This is a serious situation. These beings most likely came down with that UFO, if it was a meteor. And now I just found new footage, literally just the other day. Just the other day, that there is a second object coming down with the meteor. It's only in one view. It's only in one view. There's a second object following the meteor, right? Following the UFO. So now we have two things coming down. And the fact that it's making a mechanical noise on the way down. And I urge everybody to go to my YouTube page, Scott Roeder at Crime Scene on YouTube. It's a video I put out. I think it's called Vegas Alien Reconstruction. And I do a whole analysis of just the meteor coming down and comparing it to other meteors that have been caught on video. Not any meteor I've ever been able to research has sound to it unless there's a big sonic boom. This is not a big sonic boom. This is a mechanical oscillating sound as it comes down, and it's green. Okay, it doesn't show up on long wave heat signature video, which means it's not hot. Okay, it also comes down at a very steep angle, and based on the triangulation of all of the footage from ring cameras, from body camera footage, from self-driving cars. When looking at any kind of event, you can't just look at one piece, right? You have to look at the totality of the evidence. And this is the same methodology that I just testified to in the Christopher Dunn case. It's the same methodology that I used when defending Oscar Pistorius of intentional murder. It's about the totality of the evidence. And you have to look at all of the evidence and the interrelationship of the evidence, how one piece of evidence relates to another piece of evidence. So we have multiple pieces of evidence here on the Vegas backyard alien case. We have a bizarre meteor that is making noises. There's a second object coming down with it, and it's at a really steep angle. Then we have a 911 call. And it's totally legit to 911 calls that I've heard of people describing a crime. The tone in his voice, the seriousness in which he's talking, the detail that he's giving is perfectly in line with the video evidence that we have proven beyond any reasonable doubt is real. So the totality of the evidence is this is real. There were non-human intelligences visiting Las Vegas, Nevada, whether on purpose or by accident or whatever, but they were there. They were there in the physical reality. There were a minimum two of them. And let me tell you right now, Billy, this is just the beginning of what we're going to do on the Vegas alien case, because now that I've opened it up to the world, there's a lot of smart people out there. And mind you, I'm doing this for free in my spare time. I'm not charging anybody for anything. Matter of fact, my podcast is not monetized. Crime Scene Time Machine podcast, not monetized. My YouTube channel, not monetized. Scott Roeder at Crime Scene on YouTube, not monetized. And I'm not going to monetize those things because as an expert who's trying to put forward evidence in a case that I'm not retained on, nobody hired me. The Kenmore family did not hire me. I don't want to monetize what I've done on this case simply because it would take away my credibility. It would put into question my motivation, right? I don't want people to say, "Oh, he's doing this to make money." I don't need the money. I make plenty of money doing my regular job, doing crime scenes. Okay, and I don't need money from the UFO thing. I'm doing this as a member of the community who's interested in the subject. And really, I got interested into the subject because of the assassination of John F. Kennedy and Richard Dolan. Richard Dolan had a show on cable TV a while back called False Flags. And he breaks down the John F. Kennedy assassination and some of the reasons why John F. Kennedy might have been assassinated. Certainly, he was anti-war. He wanted to get out of, he didn't want to do Vietnam. And there's a lot of money in war. Don't let anybody tell you it's about protecting freedom. It's about making money. Bottom line, it's about making money. And a lot of helicopter companies like Bell Helicopters, which turned into Bell Aerospace, they made a lot of money in Vietnam, right?
We have these beings landing in Vegas. Do you have any other contributing ideas as to why they might have crash landed? Were they shot down? Why are they in the backyard of Vegas, 50 yards from Area 51? Isn't it 50 miles from Area 51? What was the exact spot where they crashed?
That's right.
So, I mean, what's the motive for them to be in that backyard?
I think it was an accident. Clearly, they came down. I think they came down. I don't know about clearly, but I think that they came down accidentally. That sound, that oscillating mechanical sound, to me, it sounded like distress. And then the fact that we were able to find another video, and we're going to release it soon, something coming down with that UFO, with the meteor. To me, it seems like something was having mechanical trouble. And it came down. So I think they came down accidentally.
But if you're an interstellar being, how do you crash? I mean, that's a lot of people say that they're donations. A lot of people say that, they're trying to advance our technology. But what does it mean? Like, how can something that travels planet to planet just crash land in a random backyard in Vegas?
Well, Earth is very unique, I think. We have gravity, right? We have electrostatic, electricity in the air. We've got all kinds of radio waves going on. And who's to say that this group of aliens came millions of miles? I think that if we believe that there are ETs out there in the universe, and the nearest star is what, Alpha Centauri, which is 4 light years away, that they're coming through normal means, right? These aren't gasoline guzzling spaceships. They're not traveling miles. They're traveling through space, not through space. They're making a hole in space and coming out the other side. And I think that theoretically is probable and possible, that they have this anti-gravitic technology, which essentially is time travel. And they're not coming through a combustion engine. So we can't apply the same standard of human travel to what they're doing. They're obviously coming through another means of travel, and they have a different kind of propulsion. So just because that they can do that doesn't mean that something can't go wrong. Nobody is perfect, not on Earth. And I believe that nobody is perfect in the universe. And technology is not perfect either. Not on Earth and not through the universe. So I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from our own condition, right? Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes all the time, right? Our technology messes up all the time. And if you're an ET from, I don't know, wherever, uh, from Boots, or wherever you're from, uh, and you jump through a portal to get here, and then you get here, and then you get hit by lightning. I don't know. Uh, I think I think it's reasonable to think anybody's technology can mess up and crash.
So when we see this video where we see the shadow that moves across the screen exactly 2 feet higher than the 6 foot fence, what type of
Yeah.
technology is that? What type of technology is that sort of cloaking these individuals? Because that's another thing that
Yeah.
is pretty pertinent to this whole video, is that there is a technology that cloaks and sort of wraps the light around these beings. It's been talked about that we have this technology in the military that allows soldiers to sort of warp the light around them so you can almost see through them. An invisibility
Right.
cloak, if you will.
Right. You basically what the technology that we have on Earth is, you have this device. It's almost like a blanket, a two-sided blanket, and on both sides there's little tiny mirrors, and you can take the background behind you and project it in front of the blanket. So literally, you are invisible. So if we can do it, and these beings are hypothetically thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of years more advanced than us, you would think that they've been able to do that too, pretty easily. And I think that also kind of this dovetails right into the Miami Mall incident, which I also think is probably real, and that's on my plate next. I'm going to be breaking down that. I actually found there's a bunch of footage out there, but a lot of it's distorted with filters and labels and stuff on it. But I found one version of the Miami Mall incident where a guy who is like a vintage guy's got a vintage fetish or whatever. He likes all things vintage, like record players and things. And the guy is at the Miami Mall with a VHS movie recorder, and he captures it on a VHS tape. And I've been analyzing that tape, and I can clearly see 8 to 10 foot tall beings in the Miami Mall. It's crazy.
That's one that's wild. Like that, I don't know what happened at the Miami Mall, but that police response was not the police response for a bunch of kids rioting. I mean, there's
No.
fights all the time, and they do not get that big of a police response. So
Yeah, I've done cases in Miami. I've worked at the Miami Police Department. I've never seen that kind of a police response. The only time I've ever seen that kind of a police response was on 9/11.
jeez.
Okay. I've never seen. The Miami Police Department is huge. They're like the fourth biggest police department in America. Matter of fact, the Miami Police Department is as big as, say, the military of France. Okay. It's a lot of people. Like the Miami Police Department could take over a small country. Okay. Why would they put every Miami-Dade sheriff and Miami Metro Police at the Miami Mall? It's not for kids with firecrackers. It's not for kids. It's not even for gunfire. You don't even see that kind of a response when somebody shoots somebody in an airport.
Jeez.
So something happened in Miami at the mall, and most likely, I think it was interdimensional beings. It was it was aliens there. Now we got to do a lot of work to prove that, but my gut tells me there's something there, and we're going to be looking into that next. But the thing about this Vegas case is, the more that I look into it, the more stuff I see. There's not just two aliens or two beings in that video. There's a bunch. And matter of fact, just today, and I'm waiting for my guy, for my tech, Luis Castillo, to get back to me. Excuse me. But apologize. But one of my viewers sent me a screen grab from the video, and I found it in my original video, and we're now working to verify it, and it's clear as day. It's clear as day, standing right behind the forklift. So there's more aliens in the video. Like I said, Billy, this is just the beginning of that Vegas case. I need to build an entire team just for UFO alien encounter videos. I received a video from a guy, and I can't say his name or where it's from. I can tell you it's in the United States, and he's a very successful guy, very credible guy. I talked to him on the phone the other day for 3 hours of him being abducted by a gray alien in his hotel room. And it's on video, clear as day, Billy, clear as day. And we verified the video. It's real. It's real. It's real.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
You've seen this video. What does this alien look like? Is it any possible way it could be some sort of costume, CGI?
No way. There's not a chance. Not a chance in the world.
Showed up in his hotel room?
Outside its window, floating outside the window on the 7th floor of a hotel. Floating in the air.
That's pretty wild.
And the head, it looks like a classic gray alien from the cover of that Whitley Strieber book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that classic gray alien with the big eyes and the big head. It almost looks like a puppet. And here's the thing about UFOs and alien videos that I think you have to consider. Sometimes they look really fake, but they're real. Sometimes they look pretty real, but those are fake. You know, the Reuters came out with a news story about the Vegas case, and they deliberately gaslit their viewers. They gaslit their viewers. They used a deliberately fake alien video that was clearly CGI to debunk my video saying that the video was real. So they used deliberately wrong video to prove that my video was fake. That's dirty business. That's what you get from Reuters. You get misdirection and you get gaslighting, right? But that's what you get from most mainstream media. Listen, if the story is important enough to report on, you should do an hour on it. If the story doesn't deserve an hour, don't do the story. And the fact that these people do 3-minute blurbs on potentially huge stories, to me, says they're not taking it seriously, and we should disregard what they're saying. Because if all we get in response to what we've done is a 3-minute debunking, that's BS. It's just not real. If you're going to do anything, do it the right way. Go all in, you know? Like, you can't be a drive-by expert. Look at a video one time on your phone. Oh, it's fake. What worth? There's no value in that.
Did you see the response video of one of the kids who was in the backyard?
Yeah, Angel's video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think regards to how he described it? Do you think he was telling the truth?
Yeah, I think 100% he's telling the truth to the best of the ability with the vocabulary that he has available to him. He's telling the truth. He's saying what he saw. And it's backed up by the video, by the video evidence.
Why do you think they didn't just take their cameras out and record when they saw the creatures in the backyard?
Shock. Shock. I've been under situations where I've been in shock before. I won't go into it, but I was on the south side of Chicago and we were shot at, by kids down an alleyway. They just thought we were cops and they shot at us. And I could have got up my phone and tried to record them, but I was too worried about stopping the bleeding. When people witness car accidents, I saw a guy die right in my arms. Last thing I thought of was to take a video of the wreck. I was in shock because this guy was dying. I think when you see things that are real like that and you have this kind of surprise, you know, you really don't think of grabbing your phone, man. You're taking in what you're seeing, and I think the fact that the mom was videotaping it from the back was brilliant. Although one of the comments that I get, the mom was brilliant in the back taking the video. However, there's a little piece of advice out there to anybody documenting a video. Don't shoot in portrait mode. Nobody wants to see a portrait mode video. Shoot landscape so that we can get a good view. You know what I mean? But people shoot portrait. Oh, it's the worst. Don't shoot in portrait mode. Always shoot landscape. Because if we would have had that video shot in landscape mode, we would have had so much more to analyze because we could fill up the screen with it. So, hey, the mom filmed. Angel and the brother, they had their guns out. They were more worried about defending themselves than recording things. And the fact that these people are avoiding attention, to me, adds credibility to their statement. I think that there's absolute.
Wait, I didn't realize that they had their guns out in the video.
Oh yeah,
like real guns or airsoft guns?
Yeah, no, those are real guns.
How old are they?
I think the younger brother was like 14, and then Angel was like 16.
Oh my god! So actually, no wonder they didn't take a video.
Yeah, I had guns at that age too, man.
They had guns.
Yeah, but the younger brother, Bobby, he had a flashlight in one hand and his gun out in the other. Angel just had a gun. And the father had nothing except for he had his gun in his holster. The father didn't take his gun out. Now, if these were people messing around in my backyard and I had a weapon on me and I felt in threat, I'd shoot. I would shoot you right in the fucking ass. Okay?
What happens if you shot an alien?
I don't know. I think they would bleed just like any other being. But here's the thing.
They might not have blood.
They might, but I think that aliens they don't live forever. They look like they're flesh and blood. If they took maybe not blood, but they look like flesh. They look like they got meat and bones. What's on the inside, I don't know. But if they're using a ship to get here, if they're depending upon technology to get here, that means that they're mortal. Right? They're not flying here like the Silver Surfer. Okay, they're not coming in like they're mortal. I think anything out there can be killed. A lot of people think that if you come face to face with a crocodile, you would think, oh my God, nothing could kill a crocodile, right? Because I don't, but then unless you're a hippo. Right. So I think everything is mortal. So yeah, I think the reason they didn't shoot is because of ontological shock. And mostly I think it's because the aliens have an ability, even if temporarily, to freeze you. Right. Some aliens, like the gray aliens, the number one thing in UFO abduction stories is an alien can look at you and off. Freeze. That's scary. Like if somebody can just look at you and say freeze, and you're just.
Where have you heard that from?
You got to look at the book from Dr. John Mack. Dr. John Mack was a psychiatrist, tenured Harvard University. He was almost thrown out of Harvard because of his study on UFO abductions. And there's two main things that happen when people are abducted. One, they get frozen. And two, when it's over, they get their mind erased. And then also after the event comes with instances of high strangeness. And I think all of those things have happened here in this Vegas case.
Those can also be symptoms of drug usage.
Or post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you mean by drug usage? Like what drug
wipes your memory?
I don't know that drug.
Roofies?
Okay, so you're saying
Alcohol.
I don't know. I don't know. But these people were analyzed by a psychiatrist, by the world's best psychiatrist, by a Harvard tenured psychiatrist. And he wrote 2 books on it, by the way. And by the way, he died in a mysterious car crash where he got hit by a train.
Jesus. Jeez, that's a weird one. We might have to do a full episode on UFOlogy, abductions, because this is about the specific, like, between talking to Ashton Forbes and you, Scott, about these 2 instances, it has totally changed my worldview. And especially, like, I used to take the UFO people a little less seriously, just because, I was like, oh, like, most of them end up being debunked. But these 2 cases are showing serious evidence. Like, the weirdest thing is people try to debunk the Ashton case, MH370, by saying that there's a JPEG that was used, a stock image. When you go back to find the earliest usage of that stock image, it's 2016. It's not 2014. So if you wanted to, like, oh, cat's out of the bag, how do we disprove this video? Oh, let's just make a stock image and put it on the internet and make it look like part of the video, and then boom, then they're done. But with this, the flashlight thing, the way they're trying to debunk you, there seems to be no actual definite way to, because it's only in their flashlight simulation does that appear.
Right.
Not any serious, like, way to debunk it.
Yeah, and we can do the experiment. I've reached out to Angel and his family through their lawyer, and I told them, and I'll tell them here if they see this, I will come to the backyard and we will do a reconstruction. We can do the full reconstruction to prove that it's not the flashlight. Okay, all of the evidence is there to do a full reconstruction. There's no way it's a flash. It's impossible to be the light from a flashlight, because, like I said, what are the chances? 1 in a Googleplex, to quote my friend Jim, that a flashlight reflection is going to be in the shape of a head with two eyes and a little thing poking out at 8 to 10 feet above a fence, which exactly fits the description that they gave before they even looked at the video footage. How is that possible? Can you explain that? You got to do so much mental gymnastics to make the hoax theory work that you have to go to Occam's razor. What is the simplest explanation? And the simplest explanation is it's true. It's real. The evidence is undeniable. It cannot be debunked, Billy. It cannot be debunked. And the bottom line is, this is the biggest story of all time.
Hopefully we can get Junior, and maybe if you contact their lawyer, hopefully we can get them on. I'd love to talk to them, and we can sort of get more to the bottom of this case. But Scott, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully we're going to be in this YouTube video. Definitely, if you're listening to this, go to the YouTube. We're going to put a lot more illustrations of what's being talked about. We're going to put the video behind it. We're going to be circling where exactly he's talking about, where you basically do see these figures walk through the video footage. And it's quite fascinating. It'll open your eyes up, because I was blogging this when it came out. And now that we're seeing this, and we have almost definite proof from an expert who's worked on thousands of cases, being like, this is a real video. And this might send a lot of people over the deep end with this one. So, Scott, thank you so much for coming on. What podcast are you on? Just plug it so people can.
Oh, yeah, sure. My podcast is Crime Scene Time Machine on Spotify and all the other places. And then I have a YouTube channel, which is Scott Roeder at Crime Scene. And special love to Dave Portnoy and to Miss Peaches. I love you, Miss Peaches.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Billy.